How does China view this growing US-Russia ties? Very complex. At one level, they feel nothing will happen, there's no difference. But at another level, they feel worried. They are worried, there's no doubt about it. And they're looking at it from different points of view. Um, I can speak on it for the next half an hour, but I want you people to understand from their point of view, from their articles. That's the way I look at it. I always look at it from the other side of the fence, and that's what I'm going to do now. Look at this. What South China Morning Post has put out. As Trump's US draws Russia closer, should China worry? Of course, China should worry, and China is worried. And this is a thing they've started the moment Trump spoke to Putin. All these articles have started coming out. Then another thing. So this relationship between Putin and USA, will it break China's stranglehold on rare earths? They're worried, and it's on the cards. Okay, if that happens, then where does it leave the the USSR, or rather the Russia-China relationship? Question marks, isn't it? And then immediately when the first meeting in Riyadh took place, Putin spoke to Xi Jinping. Okay, some talk took place. All that is fine. All this is happening. There's a triangular movement which is happening. People will have to understand that. But let me take some analysis now. He says the Chinese feel this is a consolidation of all the three articles which I have shown so far. So they say that, look, USA is seeking to ally with Russia to contain China. They are very clear that they are being targeted. That's the first part. And this thinking is firmly in China. They also feel that Trump's outreach is not likely to succeed. They also feel that the Russia-US relationship is only temporary. And they feel that the Russia-China relationship is strategic and permanent. There's a strong feeling in China that Russia cannot wish China away. And Russia knows that alienating China might be fatal to Russia. Okay. The next thing they are worried about is that USA and Russia are discussing rare earths and opening trade routes, because that affects China directly. And they feel that USA believes that the discussion on the trade routes will draw, or rather put spokes between the Russian and the Chinese relationship. And there will be differences which will come up. And any deal in the Arctic lanes will, the way I look at it, USA will put spokes for China's participation there. They'll already, Trump has very clearly said no China in that area. So, but China will now pressurize Russia. So Russia is not in a comfortable position. And Russia has to hedge its bets. If peace breaks down in Ukraine, it will need China back. So all these issues are there. So when we talk of peace in Ukraine, there's something else happening somewhere else. That's what I'm trying to put across to you. Okay. And then China is putting a spoke. He says, look, USA is trying to break the territorial integrity of the Arctic continent. And they say, look, whatever USA is doing, it's impinging on the territorial integrity of Canada, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, all these. So it's not something which USA can do on its own. That's the Chinese viewpoint, mind you. But we know USA is pushing its way through. and it's got the entire EU on a barrel. And they are also aware of the fact that more than 80% of Russia's combustible gas and 17% of its oil, the reserves, are located in the Arctic Circle. And China wants that. China will need energy in future. And China is eyeing that. Why it wants to enter the thing is wants to make a deal with Russia for that. And if China is kept out of the Arctic Circle, that energy might get barred from them, or they might not get their hands on it, and that's what worries them. These are the Arctic, lanes which they feel will go towards USA, right? We know this. All these three lanes: the eastern lane, the western lane, and the central lane. As of now, the eastern and the western, the ones in pink or red, whichever color you feel it is, open up seasonally. The one in green is right now not yet open. When that opens, a lot of other things open up. Okay. Then the another thing which has come out in this whole story, which they say is, let's talk about rare earths. He says China today owns 60% of the rare earths reserves, and 90% of the processing capability is in China. Now, mind you, the 60% is what so far has been discovered or rather been attempted. And why these rare earths are not being mined by others? Earlier, once upon a time, it was USA which was the leader, because environmentally it is degrading. They have actually very sensibly out, from their point of view, outsourced it to China. Let China suffer degradation, and China has taken it on. The communists ne unko kya farak padta hai? Again, USA is not opening up its own mines, except in case there's a problem. They're looking at Ukraine. So all the environmental degradation will go into Ukraine. And where is this? Along that ceasefire line. Why are they doing this? They know that there'll be not many people there. There's a plan in this whole story, which people are missing. Okay, so USA is playing a very deep game. People who think Trump is all bluster, I don't agree with it. Okay, and now the moment more reserves are tapped, moment more processing takes place, China is at risk. Their grip will be at risk, and USA is trying that. That's what the Chinese are worried about. And this is a statement of fact. 50%, there are 50 critical minerals. Okay, out of those 50 critical minerals, USA imports 50% to 100% of them, or 41 of them. Out of 50, 41 are imported by USA, and that to 50 to 100% of the requirement is imported. And China is the larger producer of 29 of them. So the moment this mineral deal goes and something starts happening, and it will happen, people don't go into mineral deal just because for fun's sake. It must be there. US guys know it. Okay. The moment that happens, right, all know it's in that part of Ukraine which is under Russian control and all that. Now that happens, maybe 2-3 years down the line, China's grip on this will start easing. The moment that happens, take into account its weakening economy and all that. Yesterday, Rajiv Narayanan and I did a show on the 2 sessions. Very clearly, it's lackluster. So if that is the case, you're going to see something happening. And what I keep saying is, it might just trigger something downward in China. And the interesting thing in this whole thing is that control of the territory in which these rare earths are there are in Russian control. But Russia on its own can't take rare earths from there because it's still sovereign Ukraine territory. So if anything has to be taken out there, Ukraine has to have legally has to have a say in it. And that is where USA comes. I told you about the economic binder. It's like putting a band-aid across a cut. Not along the cut, across the cut, and holding it together economically. Will it work? I don't know. But I think the way Ukraine economy is and Russia economy is, they will. Okay. And in this, the Chinese are worried about one issue. They feel that it is Russia which has extended an olive branch to US on this rare earth resources. That worries them a hell of a lot. Okay. Then, of course, I found this very, very, very interesting full-length, analysis by a person called Chang Wen in Guancha. And this is, like I always tell all of you, Guancha is a vernacular press in USA, very influential. Not sorry, vernacular press in Chinese in China, established by a guy who's a Stanford graduate, talks completely about China. Next focus is USA, and there's no negative press coverage about China in this. No problems of China will come. Every article in that says China is the best. Now there's this article which has come out. So this I'll analyze this and have a look at all these issues. It's in a question answer form. Cheng Ye-wen, he is a professor in the School of International Relations and Public Affairs of Shanghai International Studies University, which is a very prestigious university. So the question which he is addressing is, will Russia turn to the US and the Sino-Russian relations be affected? So his answers, I put it in bullet form. Russia has always wanted to cooperate with the US unilaterally on a one-to-one basis. But he feels that USA has never treated Russia well. So that's against the USA. China and Russia, on the other hand, have a strong no limits friendship with no obstacles, whether it is politics, economy, or anything in between. So he's establishing the relationship between both these. Then the question he says is, are benefits which USA brings to Russia greater than the benefits which China offers to Russia? That's the thing. And he also analyzes that USA cannot guarantee Russia's two major interests, security and economic development. In this, I think he's going wrong, because that's precisely what USA is attempting to do. Give it a way out for economic development with the West. And once you have a settlement in place, security guarantees will automatically follow. And he feels that, look, Nixon 1.0 was different in 72. Nixon 2.0 is happening now. It's different. So what is this Nixon 1.0 and 2.0? Okay, he's made a comparison. At that time, he says China and USSR had difficult relations. But today it's the opposite. So, right? At that time, Russia could, because of the difficult relationship between Russia and China, USA made headway, but today it can't make. That's the view. And then he examines the earlier time. He says, in the Sino-US Soviet triangle, USA showed goodwill to China. And it resulted in economic, security, and political benefits to China. There's no doubt that's how China grew. He says now, if Russia and USA improve their relationship, their security interests might be at this point of time satisfied, but their economic interests can't be satisfied. Why it can't be satisfied? He feels, and China feels as an extension, that the economic interests of Russia can only be satisfied by China. That's their conviction. And they feel that Russia will not turn to USA and abandon China. If that happens, it's not good for China, and Russia. But then that is precisely what Trump is trying to do. It might take time. Like I said, the moment a deal is done between Russia and USA, the deal between Russia and China will start getting degraded. There might not be a sudden abandonment, get degraded. You see this along with the internal state of China, and you see China is at a risk. Right? That's the way I look at it, and that's the way even the Chinese look at it. And then he goes on to say Trump has made many economic and geopolitical moves. And he says all these moves are to focus on China and deal with it. And China needs to be highly vigilant about these actions. And because their relationship with USA has not been good. And then he says China should be prepared for two possibilities. Very interesting, this part. What are these two possibilities? One, China and USA will soon engage in a strategically decisive battle. So he's now talking of what? What is this battle? We don't know. Then he says Trump is not preparing for a strategic battle. Very funnily. Why is Trump not preparing for a strategic battle? As per him, he says if there is a strategic battle decisively fought between USA and China, USA needs allies. It needs European allies, West, and everything. But Trump is not, Trump has alienated all of them. The Europe is not with them. So, can he fight a strategic battle? Okay. Now here comes the next thing. He says, while USA is doing the strategic battle, China gets an opportunity. He says that's the second possibility. Told two possibilities. What is the second possibility? He says there was a new premise in the US-China relationship about 8 to 10 years back. This has changed now completely. And what are the changes of this premise is what he's talking of. Okay. Then he's speaking of the US goal in this whole story and Russia's tactics. Okay. As it breaks from Western allies and engages Russia, he says the US goal is to break wedges or drive wedges between Russia and its partners. Who are Russia's partners? Iran, North Korea, and China. Already by that letter which I spoke a little earlier to Iran, there's a wedge coming there. There's some vague overtures have gone to North Korea, but we'll see how it is. Okay. China, of course. And the next partner of Russia is India. So that's a different story. We'll talk of it differently. There are going to be no wedges between Russia and India. USA might just use India to soften Russia. Okay. And then he says West Asian conflict, when it ended, it exposed the vulnerability of Iran and resulted in the downfall of Syria, which means that Russia today is weak. It has lost its base at Tartus and Latakia. They're all analyzing all this. So next point is that Russia's strategic position and influence in Middle East is eroded. So Russia is not in a strong position. So they're worried that Russia might get caught by USA. Okay, and they say that Russia's reliance on its other partners other than China, Iran, North Korea has been restricted. Even with India and Saudi Arabia, Russia can't do deals without USA. Overall, he feels that Russia is playing a long game and it knows how to pick its battles. It should be very clear how it's picking up its battles. Okay, and they feel that this tailwind which Russia is getting from USA might be temporary. But overall, they're worried. That's the point. So what's the Chinese opportunity in this? Very deep analysis. This transatlantic rift which is happening is a systemic reordering of geopolitics and rapid disintegration of the West. That's the way Chinese look at it. It opens a China led post American world order. And this is what Wang Yi has also spoken of in the two sessions. He says, whatever is happening in this thing, China is the defender of stability, and we'll talk of it. The opportunity which China has is USA alienates its allies historically. He's right in all this. Then now he says China is ready to fill this vacuum. It can have economic incentives, trade deals, peacekeeping, whatever it is. And they feel that the European Commission has softened its attitude towards China. So China can get involved with this whole story and do shuttle diplomacy. The only problem with this theory is no one is asking China. No one has spoken of China. कि भाई तू everyone has said तू वहीं बैठे रहो हम sort out बाद में करेंगे. And then he goes on to say, look, remember this analysis is also to the domestic audience. So to the domestic audience, they have to say that China is doing a great job. But why do I get this is to understand how the Chinese are thinking and how they're projecting themselves, whether it's internally or externally. Now China is trying to position itself as a peacemaker. And he says earlier also, we were peacemakers. We gave a 10-point plan, which no one bothered about. And China will pose as a selfless broker, but it is a strategic player. So, but no one believes it. The problem with China today is no one believes it. So you see how China is looking at it. China is looking at this entire thing as a threat and an opportunity. Now, how that opportunity goes, how the threat manifests itself is something to be seen. But there's a very clear understanding that whatever is happening between Russia and USA has major implications for China, and China has started analyzing this one by one. And that's what I thought I'll put across to you. Interestingly, I found some articles which are very interesting about India and China, which I'll discuss in the next thing.